It started with a single, quiet message that no one outside the investigation was supposed to know about. A digital tip sent anonymously, buried among thousands of others, yet powerful enough to change the entire direction of the case overnight. That tip didn't just add another theory. It redirected investigators straight toward electronic evidence, forcing them to rethink priorities, timelines, and even people they had already spoken to. Before we go any further, make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell so you can get first-hand updates on this story and others as they continue to unfold. The anonymous digital tip arrived through a secure online portal used by law enforcement to receive public information. At first glance, it appeared vague, referencing data rather than people. But when analysts looked closer, they realized the tip contained technical details that suggested insider knowledge or, at the very least, someone with a deep understanding of digital trails. The message pointed investigators away from purely physical searches and toward electronic footprints, phones, cameras, and network data that often tell a more honest story than eyewitness memory. This shift was critical. Up until that moment, the investigation had been heavily focused on ground searches, interviews, and physical evidence gathered from known locations. The tip suggested that key answers might not be found in forests or fields, but in servers, memory chips, and cloud storage. As a result, investigators reorganized their priorities. Digital forensic teams were expanded, specialists were brought in, and resources were diverted toward analyzing electronic data that had previously been considered secondary. This included revisiting devices already seized, requesting new warrants, and mapping out digital activity across a broader timeline. The tip also raised a troubling question. If someone outside law enforcement could see this much, what else had been missed? That realization injected new urgency into the case. It wasn't just about finding new evidence. It was about ensuring that no critical digital clues slipped through the cracks again. That renewed focus quickly paid off when trail camera footage emerged as a key piece of evidence. Cameras placed along remote stretches of Lansdowne Road, originally intended to monitor wildlife, allegedly captured an individual matching the description of a person of interest. These cameras are motion-activated and time-stamped, making them particularly valuable in investigations where timelines matter. According to sources familiar with the footage, the images showed a figure moving through the area during a time window that had previously been unaccounted for. While the footage was not crystal clear, investigators believed it was strong enough to warrant closer examination. The significance of Lansdowne Road cannot be overstated. It sits at a crossroads between several locations central to the investigation, making it a natural corridor for movement. The fact that a person of interest appeared near that area raised immediate red flags. Investigators began comparing the footage with known clothing, gait patterns, and physical characteristics. Even small details, like the way the individual carried themselves or paused at certain points, were analyzed frame by frame. While trail camera footage alone is rarely enough to establish guilt, it can place someone in a specific location at a specific time, which becomes incredibly powerful when combined with other forms of evidence. That combination became even more compelling when cell tower and GPS data entered the picture. Digital location data appeared to contradict public statements that had been made about certain whereabouts during critical hours. Cell phones constantly communicate with nearby towers, creating a rough but reliable map of movement. GPS data, when available, can be even more precise. Investigators reportedly discovered discrepancies between what had been said publicly and what the data suggested privately. These contradictions didn't automatically imply wrongdoing, but they did raise serious questions about accuracy and honesty. Such inconsistencies force investigators to dig deeper. Were the statements mistaken, deliberately misleading, or based on incomplete information? To answer that, analysts reconstructed movement patterns using multiple data sources, including call logs, app usage, and background location pings. When overlaid with known events, the data painted a picture that did not fully align with the narrative presented earlier. This kind of contradiction is often a turning point in complex cases, not because it proves anything on its own, but because it narrows the range of plausible explanations. As digital analysis continued, audio recordings recovered from seized devices added another layer of concern. These recordings, once authenticated by forensic experts, reportedly revealed behavior that investigators described as troubling. Audio forensics is a meticulous process. Experts must verify that recordings are genuine, unaltered, and correctly time-stamped. Once that process was complete, the content itself became the focus. The recordings allegedly captured conversations and ambient sounds that raised questions about intent, awareness, and emotional state. While authorities have been careful not to release details publicly, sources say the tone and context of the recordings prompted behavioral analysts to weigh in. Such experts look for patterns, stress responses, inconsistencies in speech, or emotional cues that might suggest deception or foreknowledge. Again, audio evidence is rarely definitive by itself, but it adds texture to the broader narrative. It can support or undermine other evidence, helping investigators understand not just what happened, but how individuals involved may have been thinking or feeling at the time. Community input also played a crucial role. Neighbor testimonies began to surface, describing suspicious late-night movements and unusual activity that had previously gone unreported or seemed insignificant. In hindsight, these observations took on new meaning. Neighbors spoke of vehicles coming and going at odd hours, lights turning on unexpectedly, and sounds that didn't match the usual rhythm of the area. While human memory can be unreliable, patterns across multiple testimonies can reveal trends worth investigating. Investigators treated these accounts cautiously but seriously. Each statement was cross-checked against timelines, digital data, and physical evidence. When multiple neighbors independently described similar events, it strengthened the credibility of their observations. Late-night activity, especially when it deviates from established routines, often draws attention in criminal investigations because it suggests secrecy or urgency. These testimonies didn't stand alone. They filled gaps between hard data points, helping to explain how and when certain movements might have occurred. Adding to that picture were results from canine scent tracking. Trained dogs followed scent trails that suggested possible vehicle involvement or even deliberate scene staging. Scent dogs are capable of distinguishing between human trails and those interrupted by vehicles. In this case, handlers reported indications that a scent trail abruptly changed, consistent with someone entering a vehicle. This raised the possibility that movements were not entirely on foot, complicating earlier assumptions about distance and timing. The idea of scene staging also emerged from these findings. If a scene was altered to mislead investigators, it would explain why certain physical clues seemed out of place. Canine evidence is considered supportive rather than conclusive, but when aligned with other data, it can significantly influence investigative theories. It suggested planning and mobility, rather than random or impulsive actions. Physical forensic analysis provided yet another piece of the puzzle. A blanket fragment recovered during the investigation was found to contain traces of diesel and specific soil types. Laboratory testing revealed that the soil did not match the immediate area where the fragment was found, implying it had been moved. Diesel residue pointed toward contact with heavy machinery or certain types of vehicles. This kind of trace evidence is invaluable because it tells a story of movement and contact that can't easily be explained away. Forensic scientists compared the soil composition with samples from various locations of interest, narrowing down potential origins. While this process takes time, it can eventually link disparate locations together, showing how evidence traveled from one place to another. The presence of diesel added another layer, suggesting proximity to equipment of vehicles not commonly found in residential settings. Digital investigators then uncovered evidence of encrypted communications and burner phone usage. Encrypted messaging apps and prepaid phones are not illegal, but their use often draws scrutiny in criminal investigations because they can indicate an attempt to avoid detection. Analysts mapped out communication networks, looking for patterns such as sudden changes in devices, gaps in contact, or synchronized activity across multiple accounts. This discovery prompted swift legal action. Obstruction-related charges, where applicable, allowed authorities to rapidly seize devices and access cloud data that might otherwise have remained out of reach. These charges are often used to preserve evidence and prevent its destruction while the broader investigation continues. Once access was granted, investigators moved quickly to secure backups, deleted files, and metadata that could reveal communication histories. Throughout all of this, authorities have repeatedly emphasized the presumption of innocence. They stress that evidence must be tested in court, not tried in public opinion. Investigations of this complexity require patience, precision, and restraint. Every piece of evidence, digital, physical, or testimonial, must withstand scrutiny before conclusions are drawn. As this case continues to develop, one thing is clear. It is no longer driven by a single lead or theory. It is a convergence of technology, forensics, and human observation, each reinforcing the other. The anonymous tip may have sparked the shift, but it is the accumulation of carefully analyzed evidence that will ultimately determine the outcome. The public is urged to stay informed, remain patient, and remember that justice depends not on speed, but on truth.